So the keys to our success, when we did well, what was working? Our distribution and awareness were almost always high, which certainly made it easy for customers to find the product, and the customers always knew about the product. High margins was another thing that helped us a lot, though I find that I probably shouldn't have focused quite as much on margins as I did, and in hindsight, there's probably more optimization could have benefited us, but still we ended up with the third highest contribution margin of all the teams, even though we were in 4th or 5th place in SPI for the majority of the simulation. When we did have success, we were communicating our optimized products well. We had a strong signal, a strong quality of signal to our customers to let them know what the products, how they changed, how we repositioned them. And we were spending sufficient money to, as a significant portion of each segment, to make sure that demand was relatively high as compared to the other competitors. There was always, it seemed, at least one company that was higher spending than us, but when we spent the most, it seemed to do the best. And also, one of the things that helped us in the late periods was our choice to concentrate on 2 products. That allowed us to contribute more spend to the marketing for those 2 products, which reduced that dilution. If we'd had 3 products instead of 2, it certainly would have led to fewer sales for us in periods 5 and 6. So what would I do differently? Certainly I would have optimized earlier, and I would have optimized more often to make sure that our products were sufficiently ideal for our customers. We knew what the segments wanted, and we just needed to find a better way to get that to them sooner. We needed to aim for that bullseye. I would have emphasized brand attributes over margins. I thought that letting a product linger for an extra period would help us save in the research and development costs, but it turns out that the drop in sales probably eclipsed any savings that we would have had from reducing our expenses on cost. Would have maximized the loan amount. Instead of taking $3 million in change, I would have taken $5 million. Still performed the R&D programs that we had performed, but also increased our spending and marketing to make sure that our repositioning spend, market research would have been more effective. Certainly, I think that would have helped us. One thing I had to remember is awareness does not equal demand. I thought that with such high awareness, we would have continued to have good sales in period 3, but it turns out that awareness, just because they know about the product, doesn't mean they're going to keep buying it. I would have gone with 1 segment and 1 brand instead of targeting 1 product into 2 segments. Certainly, it ended up being less than ideal, as I said earlier about our SOAR product. I would have spent aggressively on market research if positioning is required. I didn't think that more than 12% would be needed to get a high quality signal, but it certainly turned out to be the way, especially given the spend of our competitors. One of the big flaws I had early on was I was using conjoint analysis to target ideal features, ideal attributes for the products, because I thought, well, that's a discrete, concrete point that I can rely on. It was a true point. But what the problem was is, even though it looked like a peak on the chart, it really wasn't the peak. And semantic scales would have given me more insight. Later on, I used semantic scales to better optimize the products, and it turned out much better. I avoided semantic scales at first because I was concerned about how my competitors' spend on market research would change the perceptions, and even though their perceptions were ideal, that doesn't mean the values that the product had in the market report was necessarily ideal. But it still would have been a better choice than relying on the conjoint analysis piece. One more thing I probably would have done is I would have targeted the explorers. They really were kind of ignored by the majority of the competitors. I think largely because the group was shrinking right from the start. But if we'd had wherewithal, I think optimizing a product specifically for them with no competition in that group probably would have led to a pretty high yield. So what did I learn from this simulation? I learned quite a bit. Segmentation and targeting is a very important feature of this simulation, understanding that different groups want different features and different products, different needs, and filling those with different products is an important takeaway. Each segment, of course, has their own price point. Some of them, are willing to spend money, whatever it takes, to get what they want, while others are value-minded. You have to keep that in mind with segmentation. You need to make sure that whatever marketing you use is reaching your target. Seeing the marketing spend spread out amongst the different market segments was a really interesting way to think about that, because it does make a lot of sense. If you want to target someone with a mass-produced product, you want to make sure that it's on maybe a pop radio station. But if you're targeting something for high earners or for professionals, maybe you put that product placement in high-end magazines or airport media posters, that kind of thing. So targeting the segment is very important when it comes to selecting your marketing. And that kind of clever spend can minimize dilution of your signal by the competition. Product. What the product does has to match the needs of the consumer. If the consumer needs high power, you need to provide them with high power. If they need features, you give them the features. But you have to consider also the costs and margins. If you develop a product with improved features, improved power, it's going to increase your costs, and you need to make sure that the product that you end up offering will have a sufficient margin. However, if you do provide them exactly what they want at exactly the right price, the product will sell. I definitely saw that late in the simulation with a couple of teams who really ran away with it. They were hitting the bullseye, and it made a huge difference in the sales. And then sometimes perception is truth. So if you have a product that is just a little bit off from what is needed, rather than going back to the drawing board, going into R&D and having it redone, you can sometimes optimize their perceptions to help customers realize that your product is the one. Price, of course, is very important. It's orthogonal to the product attributes. Within a price segment, you have to look at what you can get. When all else is equal, price is king. Certainly early in the simulation, we saw multiple products that weren't well optimized, and whoever picked the right price was the one who ended up getting the most sales. I certainly benefited from that early on in this simulation. There are optimal ranges for each segment, but lower isn't always better. Some segments really want to have a high cost product because they feel that something with lower cost is inferior quality, or it doesn't carry the same prestige that the product that has a higher price tag carries. And price is more important for some segments than others. It's a bigger priority for people that don't have a lot of money. That price can be essential, but for someone who just wants power, they're willing to overspend or underspend as long as they're getting the power that they want. Price is important. Place is very important as well, of course. Once the customer knows about the product and wants it, they need to be able to find it. Channels, of course, in our simulation, there was the specialty stores, mass merchandisers, and online. And certainly when you're considering who's going to buy your product and where they normally shop, you have to choose the places that they normally shop so they can find your product. Savers in the real world might shop at Walmart. You want to put your products there. High earners might look for sleek Apple type products, and so you need to do the mall kiosks and Apple stores, something along those lines. And professionals, they want power and speed, and they're going to find it wherever they happen to look for it. Some of them may look more online to do more research and find the products there. You need to make sure that if you have a product that is sought by a certain group, you're putting the product where they can get it. And promotion. Again, I said previously, awareness is not demand. Just because someone knows about it doesn't mean they're going to want to buy it. You need to make sure you get a quality message to the group that you're trying to sell to, and that the quality message matches what they're expecting, what they want. Just because you're telling someone about your product doesn't mean they're going to change their mind necessarily about it. Demand can wane without constant messaging. I saw that definitely in period 3 when we dropped our marketing spend for the soft product. Our awareness was still quite high, but people weren't buying the product because it wasn't forefront in their minds. They were looking for something else, the hot thing, the new thing, the thing that they saw on TV. You have to know how to reach your target, buying ad space by segments. As I said before, maybe high earners and professionals are at airports or in high-end magazines. While billboards in downtown might get someone who's looking for a more common product. The message can communicate attributes, so you can tell people what your product can do, but also you can alter perceptions. That is, you can use the marketing research to make a product seem more optimized for what someone is looking for, or make them realize that your product is what they're looking for, even though it may not have met their original criteria. You can then use that alteration of perceptions to kind of nudge customers into the sweet spot to increase your sales. So certainly this was a beneficial strategy going through this marketing simulation. I was glad to be a part of it, and I'm looking forward to taking some of these lessons and applying them in real life. Thank you very much.